Welcome. You are at the CCC.
Where there are no outside issues. My name's Anthony. I'm an addict and an alcoholic, another bozo on the bus, and I care about you.
And I'm LouiLou, and my pronouns are he and him. I am in recovery for crystal meth and alcohol, and I am always in search of balance. Yes, and each week we strive to foster a brave space where we can engage in conversation centered around topics of recovery.
And our intention is to hold and inspire better spaces for more people in recovery by tackling issues sometimes used to separate us.
But before we do that, please like, share. Remember to like, share, and comment on this episode.
Like, share, subscribe.
Subscribe
Ding that bell.
Wherever you get podcasts.
Tell your friends about us.
Please do.
Your family, your friends, your enemies.
Absolutely.
People you see on the street. And now the disclaimer. The thoughts and opinions expressed on At the CCC are alone. We do not represent anyone but ourselves. The information we share is for general information purposes only. In other words, we are just a couple of friends behind a mic here to entertain you.
Entertain.
That deserves a shoulder shimmy.
Yeah.
I'm shoulder shimmy.
Something that's super cool. Like,
what
okay,
is?
So, after I introduce myself and you say, balance.
Yeah.
That helps me for the next part because if you notice when you don't say that, that's when I fuck up my part.
I see. So you're not taking responsibility for your
it's almost like a
codependent.
I see.
I'm not taking responsibility.
No.
Exactly.
No, I mean it's a cue, right?
Exactly.
It makes a lot of sense.
I'm saying I totally appreciate you.
I thank you.
Oh, exactly. How are you doing?
I am very good. I'm very good. It's really cold in this room, and so for people listening, I am covering myself with one of our sound blankets.
I know, exactly.
Because this new studio space is really big and very cold. And we could turn on the heater, but then we would have noise.
It'd be like,
yeah, and then we would sound like we just started. So
what did we just start doing?
Like started a new pod. You know what I mean? Like, because even my favorite podcast, like if you go to their like very first episodes, you can hear the clunkiness. Like they haven't really found the rhythm.
Violent now, you can hear in the background people working at the register. Everything just sounds so kind of like.
Yeah. But fine. Yeah, it's just really cold. How are you?
I am good. I'm really good. It's like I am just. Number one, really happy to be back at this.
Back at it again.
I really missed you guys.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, even though I see you guys all the time, but it's like again, like I was telling you guys in the last episode, I didn't call mine a meltdown, but it was a meltdown. It's like, and so it was one of those situations where like you got to see me in a vulnerable place, and I think that one of my character defects is control, and so I usually my friend used to say, "You're wound so tight you shove a lump of coal up your ass to spit out a diamond," and it's true. And I thought I had overcome that, but it's like it's still there.
You know what song I have in my head right now?
What?
Why are we so blind to see that the ones we heard? Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. Are you? Was that Bone Thugs and Harmony?
It was. Yeah. No, that's a Coolio. We keep spending most of our lives living in a gangster's paradise.
Oh,
you know what?
That's Bone Thugs.
That's okay. The movie Dangerous Minds.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
It was based off of this student teacher that taught at my high school.
No way.
And I was in her class.
No way.
So whatever that was Hollywood doing what it does to a movie, but I'm all, that is not true. That was not us. There was nothing like I'm all, but it's like, they probably read her story.
You know what that reminds? Go ahead.
They probably read her story and said, but we can make it better.
Okay. You know what that reminds me of? On SNL, they have this amazing bit that they do. Have either one of you seen this? So basically, it's a black teacher enters into the room and it's a bunch of black students.
I saw that.
Do you see this? And she goes into this like very motivational. It was like something like she's like, and people might Megan Thee Stallion was it. She's like, people might think you're dumb and that you are blah 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 blah. And they're like,
who called this dumb? Who called this ignorant?
Yeah, this
is AP.
This is a STEM school.
This is a STEM school. Yeah, I love that.
It's such a good, oh God, so good.
But it was funny. It's like I saw the movie and then somebody mentioned it and said, do you know this is based on, oh, great. It's like, I'm all, okay, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we, that was the the sound transition.
Was that your chair?
No. So today's topic is throwing yourself into service. So during our last episode, we were talking about like post-election stuff, and one of the ways, one of the solutions that is proposed in a lot of 12-step when you're going through anything that's difficult is to get out of yourself and to go the harder into service.
Oh, absolutely. Right? Especially when the sex is a problem. And that's what we say. It's like,
that is part that is in the big book. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And in yoga, they say do handstands if sex is a problem.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
To get the blood out of your genitals into your brain.
It's quicker to get you.
Honestly, this is what I did. Well, no, this is what they told me.
Okay.
This is what I was told. Back when I did like Bikram yoga and when I lived in Berkeley. Oh God, that's like the most Berkeley thing.
You're a hippie.
I'm like, I did Bikram yoga.
Oh, wow.
There have been.
Have you ever done naked yoga?
No.
Why not?
I'm very shy.
Okay, because it's like
I've done naked things.
Well,
like I've gone to Harper's Springs.
Yeah, I know
you know what I'm talking about. I've done that.
Harbin Hot Springs.
Okay, girl.
Yeah. Okay.
I get it.
Oh.
I get it. You're classy.
No, I was just saying the actual name in case somebody wanted to know.
Do you also have a cabin in Truckee?
Oh my God!
I do not have a cabin in Truckee.
That's a throwback.
I do not have a cabin in Truckee because once they saw
Neither do I.
color, they'd be like, "Yeah, you know what? We don't have any more vacancies."
That's a throwback to our last episode.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, throwing ourselves into service.
What's important to talk about what service is? Because in my mind, when I think about service, I mean service is anything that takes you out of yourself.
100%.
That is not always convenient. That not always easy, but it's like something you do to kind of like
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, so one of the things that I don't know why I can't talk. I'm like stumbling over myself.
Okay.
I know.
Go ahead.
It's cold in this room. I think you ever try to do things with your fingers when they're cold?
Oh God.
Well, it's like kind of like how I'm feeling with my mouth right now. It feels so cold. But what I was gonna say is, sometimes service doesn't have to be hella big either.
No,
sometimes it's just listening to someone. I was going to say what you said, which is like, I see service as anything where I'm getting out of myself, and doing something for someone else. For a lot of us,
and it can be fun too.
Yeah, it can be fun.
I don't want to give the impression that I think service has to be kind of like depressing and kind of like morbid and anything.
Yeah, it doesn't have to hurt.
Because now we're being of service.
Yeah, I guess we are.
I'm doing my service work, showing up and being supportive for these knuckleheads.
Yeah. You're changing the world.
I am. One knucklehead at a time.
One knucklehead at a time. That's what I always say.
Yeah.
Throwing yourselves at. So sometimes one of the things that I really like, I heard someone say not too long ago, which is when you go to a meeting, for example, and you're in a chair, you're being of service.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Because you're in the room, and when you can't just, if no one showed up, you wouldn't have a meeting or people to connect to.
Another way that I'm of service, I do drag occasionally.
Yeah.
I brought it up again.
Yeah.
And so there are all these amazing makeup artists or former Miss Castro Country Club.
Yeah.
They don't want to do it, but they love doing makeup because obviously my face is this amazing canvas. And so when you allow somebody to help you out in that way, you're allowing them to be of service.
I thought that when you said that there was like a low hanging fruit joke there, because you were like, I do drag, and I was going to be like, I do drag. I can't even. I'm like, by do drag, you're like being very generous with that description.
You know what? I want you to know that
you're the snap. Okay. Well, you've said. Go ahead. Well,
I'm okay with you coming for me.
No. But I don't.
We look less like a bully.
Well, no, because what I'm thinking about are like things that you've said, and one of the things that always comes up for me when you talk about like you give a C+ performance, I'm like, oh my God, she's like the Snapple of drag.
Yeah, well, no, I would say especially if I'm hosting.
Because Snapple says they're third best. Go ahead.
Especially if I'm hosting.
Yeah.
If I'm hosting, I do not need to be the center because what I don't do in my performance, I make up for in.
Well, that's like a strength you have is that you're really good at emceeing, right? That's like certainly a strength that you have that not a lot of queens have.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I've seen.
Yeah. I mean, they can fall flat.
It's sad.
It's a different thing.
It can ruin the show.
Yeah,
it can ruin the show because
they're still being of service.
You're waiting.
They're still being of service.
No, they are absolutely.
It gives you something to talk about.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. You know what I mean. There was like that one show, for example. Oh man, I don't know if we can talk about it.
Say it.
Well, I mean, someone was singing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Someone was singing.
Is that what they were doing?
And a lot of people had opinions about it.
Yeah.
What I thought was very interesting about their opinions is that they weren't drinking or using while they were talking about it. You know what I mean?
No,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
Glass half empty.
Yeah.
Half full is what I meant to say.
Oh, so funny. So obviously through the Castro Country Club, they have the mascara show. It's the drag show.
Yeah.
And for a while they were having an alternative to that for folks who don't do drag. It was called It's Never Too Late. And it was going to be kind of a mini little variety or a kind of salon type thing. And I wanted to bring that back, but change the name to Cringe.
Oh no.
And have it be an opportunity for because I think there's still a space for that. There still needs to be space for folks because it could be spoken word. It could be a number of things.
Oh no, not bad poetry.
No, but see, that's the thing. It's all
I know.
subjective.
I'm just being fun.
No,
it's not subjective. Not entirely.
Okay, well,
I mean okay. To be fair, I'm saying, I'm trying to see if this changes the sound at all. So for people who can't see this, but what I'm doing is I'm covering the mic with the blanket.
it looks so weird.
So
it looks so weird. It's like it's like we're having a sleepover. I'm all, my parents called me out to the kitchen and asked why my friend was being so weird. What's wrong with your friend? And do I need to call his parents? Did he take his medication tonight?
Oh man, that just fucked me up. I don't know what I was gonna say. What were we talking about? Bats.
No,
that's what I feel like. I do feel like a bat.
We were talking about
subject. Well, okay. I'll just say the thing that I was thinking of, which
Please
is
say
like
the thing.
Well, so we can say things are subjective, right? But we can also evaluate something based on the effectiveness in which they are doing the thing that they're trying to do. So, for example, you can see art, and art you could maybe subjectively not like it, but is the art achieving what it's intending to achieve, right? So, I feel like I'm kind of being heady about drag, but I feel like drag is a lot like, okay, I have a good example.
Okay,
I have a good example. Menorah is one of my favorite drag queens. Mm-hmm. Menorah does a thing. She has like a signature. And it's clear that she's not for everyone, exactly. But she is doing what she is setting out to do, right? Like it's very kind of like obscure, avant-garde, right? Like she pushes boundaries. That's great. But then you see some other queens who go up, and this is funny because I was talking to another mutual friend of ours, and I won't say names.
Don't say names.
But I won't say names.
We'll know.
But they were talking about this drag queen in the community, and our friend says to me, Anthony, he goes, Anthony, I don't think her drag does what she think it does. And I was like, okay, that's fair.
I actually had a conversation with Bonnie Violet about that because I remember at one point when she was doing drag and I hosted the show, she was like, I want people to feel a certain thing. And it's kind of like when you're sharing at a meeting or whatever.
Yeah.
You don't know. Like I wish I could.
Right.
I wish I could determine what people are going to feel from.
Right.
The only thing I can do is make sure I feel something, and if I feel something, then in turn people will get that.
So. I think that's so even with the podcast, right? It's like that is part of what happens when you produce a thing that's being consumed is that you can't determine how people are going to consume it. If you produce art, you're like, it's out of your control. People are going to do what they want with your art. Similarly, it's like we have a podcast, we have opinions, we say things. Not everyone's going to like us. Like that's just the nature of the beast, right?
No.
Yeah. You anyway.
And that's the nice thing. It's like I think we're being of service. We're giving people an opportunity. Because if you feel a certain way or whatever, and you are so inclined to comment, you can send us a message on at podcast.
Yeah, maybe not talk behind our backs.
ORG.
Maybe not talk behind our backs.
You know, exactly. It's
maybe not like propose that that we get fired from a job that we don't have.
I know, exactly. It's like,
anyways.
Yeah.
My question is,
okay, what is it?
Is there such thing as like bad service or like, so if I'm going to do something, right, we're talking about the effectiveness to other people. Is there some service that I could do that isn't as effective, or
you know what?
In terms of harmful to
can I
myself?
say something? And then no, I don't think there is bad service, but I think that, you know how I talk about balance? I think that especially for those of us in recovery, you can throw yourself so far into service that you forget what you were there for. Like, and let's say I prioritize doing this so that I don't have to focus on what I really need to focus on. Because if I'm being of service to you, if I'm saving lives or whatever, then I don't have to acknowledge the shit that's going to save my life. And that could send me, like I always say, it's great to be of service, but you know what? Service, you know how they say service keeps you sober? Mm-hmm. Sometimes it can take you out.
Yeah. So to your question, Jordan, I do think that, for example, if you're doing shit for someone that they didn't ask for.
Dick at Collingwood Park.
Okay.
You know, no kidding.
We took a strong left turn. It was very sharp. I got whiplash.
I know, exactly. Yeah. I currently don't have my license. That's why I was strong.
Right. So, for example, if we're doing things that weren't asked for example, it's like someone venting to you and then you give them unsolicited advice, right? Like that's not very like being of service. And part of being of service is getting out of yourself. So you're asking
if they're venting to you.
Yeah, I mean, if someone's venting, like what I always say, if someone's venting to me is, do you want me just to listen?
Well, you better say that.
Yeah, well, that's what I said.
Guess what? The price of admission is I'm getting ready to tell you what I think.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is like I always say whenever I have a friend venting to me, that isn't talking over me is that.
Wow. Okay, so I do that because I'm trying to participate in this conversation.
I know.
No, but I got one more point. No, wait, 3 more points. Hold on, just a second, and then go ahead. Well, I forgot my point. Shut up.
Another thing.
Jordan, before you say anything, so what I was saying is that I ask people, do you want me just to listen, or do you want to hear what I'm thinking? Right, like that's how I approach those kind of things. But I think, for example, if you're doing things that someone didn't ask for, like I do think there's like a degree, there's like an art to being thoughtful and like doing things without being asked to do those things. But I do think it's a little bit of a gamble, right? And so, is there such a thing as bad service? Probably. I don't know.
When you're doing stuff. Mm-hmm. And your motives aren't altruistic.
Oh yeah.
Like I'll give it.
Well, it's not service then.
I'll give an example. It's like so I showed up to Glide to serve food. To serve, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm saving lives or whatever, and I had the worst attitude. And someone called me out and said, you know what? You probably would have been more of service if you stayed at home. Because you're not here, they're not here to accommodate you. You're here to support folks who are struggling and doing whatever. And I was in this nasty mood and whatever. And so I realized it's like, if my motives, if I'm doing this because I want all this vainglory and whatever, and he told me to come closer. Oh my God!
Well, because you're doing all these hand motions,
you can't see this,
and then you keep moving.
I was super passionate. You can't see this, and Anthony had to correct me and make sure that
I didn't have to. I just wanted the world to hear what you were saying.
Oh, look at that! Okay,
as being of service,
anyway,
I wanted to make sure your message was being heard.
But the whole good and bad service is like there's a fine line. It's like
Jordan, hold your thoughts. So the other thing was. I can see he's so angsty. He wants to say things, like so. One of the things that I've seen people do, and I'm guilty of this too, is doing service alcoholically. So one of the things that and it was my ego, right? And so what I would do is and our friend Michael says this too, I would take on a bunch of fucking service commitments because one, I liked being exposed to so many people on a regular basis, and it's very validating for someone to be like, "Oh, Anthony, you do so much service. You're, always in the middle of the lifeboat,
Your
right?
program is so solid."
Blah blah blah. And that, and so I start doing service for that as opposed to what it was actually doing for me, right? So yeah, I think, you do have to question your motivations, and can you do service to the point where it's like not really servicing anyone? Yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean?
It's not servicing anyone if you're not servicing them.
Oh God. Oh God. Remember when we used to scat? Jordan, what were you going to say?
No, just that I think there's been folks, right, who have a commitment every day of the week.
I can't hear you.
Sorry, there's people around who have a commitment every day of the week at every meeting, and it's like, are you taking opportunity away from other people who might need or want a service commitment when you have one?
It's like the spirit of rotation. It's like, come on, move, let other people have some fun.
Yeah, and yes.
Or and the point too of like doing mascara, right, can be very stressful for some folks, and is that stress harming or is it helping?
I have an opinion about that.
Well, okay. So you want to?
No. I mean, so you're.
Well, no. For me, what it is, I try to encourage people. I think that, but I also had to get to a place where it's like, if you decide you're going to perform, but towards the end you decide against it, to be okay with, okay, maybe you can do it again. Because one of the individuals who eventually ended up becoming Miss Castro Country Club, the year that I was hosting, she wanted to perform but kept relapsing. And in my mind, I was telling her, you know what, mascara is going to be here. As much as you may want to do this, it's like you need to focus on what you need to focus on. And come to this, it's going to be here.
Yeah.
And yeah, I need to go back to that whole, I used to always say mascara is a hover bad drag, and I want to use Menorah as a perfect example. In the beginning, especially like the first time you see Menorah and you don't understand that Menorah has a plan, you're like, what is this? And there are a lot of people who are closed off to it and not giving Menorah the same kind of opportunities. And I think that if we prejudge, and this is why doing something like Cringe or It's Never Too Late or whatever, giving folks an opportunity to kind of see if it's something that they want to do, because not everybody starts off doing it really well.
Yeah.
But if they keep doing it and they're passionate about it, they get better. Now, mind you, there are some people, and I always say this.
Yeah.
If you keep doing something and you don't get better at it, you should start walking dogs.
Yeah. I love, going back to Menorah, I absolutely love her drag. And one of the things that I like about it is that it is hers.
Oh, absolutely.
She's not trying to be anyone else. And you see a lot of these queens where they're just kind of mimicking things that they saw either on Drag Race or some girls, some of the girls just want to be pretty right. And so you see a lot of this kind of recycled stuff. And what I like about Menorah is Menorah has her own fucking style. A lot of her stuff can be very high concept, which takes a lot of work. So I think she's a true creative. It's so funny because I as we're talking about drag, I always think that the way that gay men talk about drag is how some people talk about sports.
Oh yeah, no,
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm like,
I know all the stats about Drag Race, but I know nothing about football.
Yeah. I mean, but because we really get invested in some of these girls, and I think a lot of us really appreciate how much fucking work goes into drag.
Oh yeah,
it is so hard.
I always say, it's like the more effortless it looks, the more effort was actually put in.
Yeah, who I think is a good example of that? MGM. MGM, the way she dances, the way she
I know, I love that. I absolutely
she's a great dancer.
Yeah,
but she makes it look so effortless. But I know, because I know what MGM is like out of drag, and what's amazing to me is the transition between Michael and then MGM. They're like two different people.
Absolutely.
It's really cool.
Since we are talking about drag, I'm telling you, for me, it has been a great way to be of service because, number one, like, I am really concerned with how people are reacting. I think about when I'm sitting in this seat, I want people to engage with me. And I tell myself I'm only wanting to do this for people that I care about, that I love. Like I want to see people having a good time. You know, I want to, and it's sometimes for some people who go to our shows, that's the only thing they do.
Right. And being of service, going back to the being of service, is like the same way that the queen that's dancing is being of service. So is the person in the audience, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like,
yeah. Pull that dollar out.
Yeah.
I usually don't finish my performance unless I see dollars because it's a fundraiser. I'm a dollar queen. I'm a dollar bill queen.
You are a dollar store queen.
Yeah. And I'm being of service right now, letting you think that you're actually funny.
Oh my God.
I'm doing community service.
Yeah. Jordan, were you going to say something?
Oh, I have another question.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I love Jordan's questions.
Okay, so outside the normal, like, greeter, treasurer, whatever, those kind of service outside of mascara, is there anything that can be of service that isn't necessarily directly AA?
The country club.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God! There's so many ways to be of service.
Yeah, of course. I think, and let's give this some context, right? Because when we talk about being of service, that's like language that's very, at least
it's very 12-step.
It's very 12-step, right? And so, what we're talking about for people not in 12-step is being of service, as Lewis was saying earlier, is doing things to get out of yourself. When you're in 12-step, there are very specific ways that you can be of service. So some meetings will have like a coffee maker or greeters or a literature person, right? And Jordan's question is, are there things outside of that, right? Then you have places like a sober community center, which the Castro Country Club is, right? I think it's picking up your phone and calling up a good friend you haven't talked to in a long time and asking them how they are doing.
Yeah.
You know, it's finding a family member that you haven't told you loved, that you love them.
Being a part of a team.
Right.
It's a soccer team.
Being part of a soccer team. You know what I mean? Jordan's an avid soccer player.
Yeah.
Spikes. With Spikes. That's right. So there are a lot of ways, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Even smiling at a stranger. You know what I mean?
My God, yes.
Don't be creepy, you know, but
yeah,
don't be creepy, but don't go around like I was smiling very intensely for people listening.
Blocking somebody on the sites. That's being of service. Not wasting their time. I'm always like, you don't have to see. You won't have to see me on the grid because I blocked you.
Yeah.
Block.
So there was something I wanted to go back to. So during our last episode, I talked about a book that was suggested to me by John Rawls called The Theory of Justice. And so I just wanted to give that a little bit
Isn't it amazing the tone of last week's episode as opposed to this week's episode?
Yeah.
It's like it's all light and airy. It's like I needed a breather.
Yeah, very much that. So one of the concepts he talks about is so the theory of justice, and it's about justice and like an equitable society. And one of the things that he advocates for is operating under the veil of ignorance, meaning that I'm paraphrasing, meaning that if we operate from the veil of ignorance, that we are doing things without knowing what our positionality is in a culture. So, for example, like, under a veil of ignorance, I don't know if I'm wealthy or poor, right? I don't know if I'm this race or that race or any other, identifier. Instead, I am acting and behaving and making decisions based on the common good, right? Without thinking about myself. That's like the veil of ignorance.
Who does that? It's like, how can you? Well,
so that's the point.
It would be amazing if we were all operating that way. But I know what I know now.
Yeah,
I know what I know, and I would like to. So I could pretend like the way I spend money now. I pretend like I've got a lot of it, and that's not the case because towards the end of the month, when the piper comes to collect.
So I'll go back to my notes. Yeah. So it says, Rawls introduces the thought experiment of the original position as a way to determine the principles of justice that rational individuals would agree upon. So in the original position, individuals are behind a veil of ignorance, meaning they do not know their own place in society, such as their class, gender, race, abilities, or personal values. And the idea is that this ignorance ensures impartiality. Because individuals cannot design principles that favor their particular circumstances. So he argues that under these conditions, rational individuals would choose principles of justice that guarantee fairness for all, especially for the least advantaged.
Okay, so this makes sense in that context back then, but how do you address it now? I mean, because how do you get to that now knowing, there are very few people who operate from that place.
Well, no, of course. First off, this is a very big book. No, exactly. And I haven't gone through all of it.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. And the fact that you're doing a book report every week on it. I live for it. I live for this. I wrote it down.
I'll do a better. I'll come back with something more concrete.
I'm sorry. They're not Cliff Notes. They're Anthony notes. It's like it's like I had made a copy.
So about that. So being of service, I think part of being of service is in knowing what you're good at. And knowing what comes naturally to you. So, and this, I think this was part of Paul's message, Pollo Damar, who we had on a few months ago. I remember asking Pollo, you remember this? And I was like, Pollo is a charismatic, big personality, very good. Just generally a really funny person. And I remember asking her, what does a person who's not like you do? Right? And her response was just fucking be yourself, right? You don't have to be this personality, just literally bring to the table whatever it is that you're bringing. So part of the way I am of service to people is that I sincerely love to listen. It's one of my favorite things to do is just to listen. And that's what I bring to my relationships with people. And part of that is not trying to be anyone other than who I am. You know what I mean? I'm not a fucking circus clown. I'm not going to do a song and dance for you. But I'll listen to you, and I'll probably think about you in the week. And, I might invite you out to dinner. Right. So I think that's one way of being of service is doing the things that come naturally to you.
Also not on the thinking of Paul and then even myself, these large personalities, not dimming your light. Sometimes it's encouraging to others when they say, hey, I can be myself and be accepted and be okay with, because I think we all struggle with, whether it's imposter syndrome or not feeling like you're enough or whatever, but really kind of, showing that, it's not about not being enough. Sometimes it's about people not being enough for you. It's
God, it's like music. It's you're not gonna like every song you hear.
No, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You're not gonna like every song you hear.
It's such a gift, in recovery and any form of recovery. There are so many. There's such a variety of folks, and you just have to find. You just have to gravitate towards that energy that is like yours.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you have to find your people, as we say.
You have to find your tribe.
Yeah, you have to find your people, and I think that's that's in early recovery that was really difficult for me finding my people. Because you're everyone has their friends and blah 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 blah, and
I have to kiss a bunch of frogs. And
yeah, exactly. That's where I'm getting at.
The message too is. And it's not going to happen naturally.
And that is being of service.
Yeah, exactly.
It is a bit of an experimentation, an experiment to hang out with people and to see whether or not you vibe with them or you don't vibe with them. And also being careful not to jump to conclusions about people. For a lot of the friends that I have in recovery, I wasn't besties with them in the very beginning when I first met them, but now I have these very solid friendships.
Yeah, exactly.
They take time. Right. And I think that is another way of being of service is, connecting with people. Not just because you think they're attractive.
Yeah, exactly. And also another way of being of service is not cutting that rope behind you once you climb up it. And I'm only thinking about
what you mean?
Okay, I'm thinking about that with all these people who like in the last episode, in the last election, who
Excuse
they
me.
got you get yours and you cut the rope behind. So that
Oh,
other
the
people-
gatekeeping. Yeah,
exactly. So I'm all-
yeah.
So that's bullshit. So you sprinkle a little of that political stuff on there.
Yeah, oh my God. Yeah, being of
Absolutely.
service. Absolutely. Has there been any particular service that has been especially meaningful to you? Or like helpful or cathartic or
You know what? Drag. I talked about it a bunch. Like I think that getting to a place where I was because I talked about earlier, no control. That's an issue that I have, and I always want people to see what I want them to see, and you put yourself out there when you're doing drag, and people can either like it or they can make shitty ass comments like you have been making.
I don't mean any of them.
There's no such thing as subjective.
No.
Okay.
No, I didn't say there's no such thing as objective. But what I was saying, first off, I'm just kidding.
No.
One.
Okay, I'm just kidding. Didn't sound like it.
Jordan-
Didn't sound like there was
It's because
fire
I
in it.
say things with a lot of conviction.
I know exactly.
I think that's like one of the downfalls of having my voice is that whenever I say things, they sound very serious all the time. Self-appraisal's a bitch.
No, absolutely.
Self-appra-
But then also like this commitment, because
Yeah.
like
Someone told me the other day, they were like, I thought you were super vanilla. Because it's like, I think it's how I
because
like.
you're my straight man. Because it's like I'm all I say this stuff and you're like shock and awe. Oh, did you just say this?
Go, what were you saying?
No,
I interrupted you.
No, I'm saying this commitment because like I even noticed that like when I'm asked to speak in a meeting and whatever, and I share, it's different. Like
Yeah.
this, being able to have these conversations, because I think sometimes the friendships that we have without knowing they are, they're superficial. They're deep friendships. They have the potential, but sometimes they're surface.
Yeah.
And because maybe we don't feel comfortable or want to risk maybe alienating people because we can go deep. Because some people like to go deep, you know?
Yeah.
And then there's some people that
yeah.
shut down, their eyes glaze over, especially with issues of race, politics, or whatever.
Yeah.
When you want to talk about this stuff, and then I've seen tables clear,
Yeah.
because people are like, let's not talk about this.
You
But
make people uncomfortable.
to be able to have the conversations that we've had in a way that, and it's our chemistry and our connection and whatever, and then having people respond, it's normalizing having conversation.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Oh, I don't know what just happened.
Dust. It's like I'm all. This one coughed out a dust ball. It's like I'm all tumbleweed. Shit. It's been at least 30 minutes since she's eaten.
At least 30. I haven't had. I don't think I've had any food. I think I have food today.
Oh,
Anyways,
So what were you talking about? Drag?
no, what service that you thought was most impactful?
Yeah. My question. I should answer it.
Yeah.
So I have historically have had issues with self-esteem. I've always had shitty self-esteem. It's gotten better over the last few years, but yeah, I was starting off with 0 in the tank. And for a bunch of different reasons. It was
where does all that gas come from?
the gas.
No, I'm kidding.
I'm over here like, I have low self-esteem. And you're like, I'm going to make a joke at your expense. Anyways, shitty self-esteem. And so, one of the things we say in AA is way you work on your self-esteem is by doing esteemable acts. Blah, blah, blah. What I did that started to help me was I started taking on service commitments where I had to interact with other people. And I did that through Western Roundup Living Sober. I did it through meetings. And I started connecting with people. And I noticed that as I was connecting with other people, that like I didn't feel as shitty about myself anymore. And it's really magical, right? Because it's not a one-to-one relationship. I can't say like, oh, I didn't feel like a piece of shit because Jordan said hi to me, but there's something magical for me that happens when like I'm able to connect with another person. And so, take away from all of that is that the service commitments that have been the most meaningful to me have been the ones where I've been forced to interact and get to know other people. Those have been really nice. And like I also feel very fortunate because, I love the kind of work that I do. And that's, when I'm able to like connect with patients, I don't even think of myself, right? And there's this, in the St. Francis prayer, it says, it is by dying that one awakens to eternal life. I feel like there is a self-death when I'm working with another person, right? And,
absolutely.
And that to me is like nothing. I don't know how to describe it. It feels very spiritual. It feels like no concern that I ever had matters. Because I'm experiencing something that's so much bigger than just my fucking thoughts.
Oh, look at you. It's like, it's going to make what I'm going to say next.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say, it's like, there's one way that I'm always of service because I work retail when I don't kick somebody in the back of their throat for being stupid.
Well, you know what? Let's another way of saying that is that I think I think we are of service when we hold our tongues. You know what I mean? Like when we don't send that text message, when we don't make that call,
oh my God, yes.
Yeah, we are of service.
And the longer that I stay sober, the longer that I practice this thing, the more opportunities I have not to act. So that's pretty cool.
I agree. Are we at time?
We are.
I think we are. Yeah, we have 4 minutes left.
The Castro Country Club is a safe and sober community center for all people and a refuge for the LGBTQ recovery community.
We provide programs and services that help people change their lives by supporting personal growth.
And our vision is to reduce the suffering of addiction by connecting people to community, opportunity, and support.
You can find more information, including all the ways to contact us at www.castrocountryclub.org.
Yes, and tune in wherever you listen to podcasts. And yeah, that's it.
Find us wherever you listen to podcasts.
Find us wherever you listen to podcasts.
Let's go.
Yeah.